The purpose of this presentation is to share with you the importance of gastrointestinal system in relation to microbes and the role that colostrum can play in maintaining the integrity of the gut ecosystem. So, as you can see, the presentation title states, Gut Health and Colostrum. Do microbes matter? So the major part of the presentation will focus on gut microbes, and then we'll tie it up with colostrum, and I will finish with some basic principles or advice to live a healthy and even long life, but healthy, not just long. So, our world is getting fatter. That is true. Obesity is a global epidemic. It's affecting us all in different ways. Maybe our family members, somebody next to us, our children, as we will see. And is a risk factor for these metabolic diseases, such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, cancer. So let's look at some global statistics. NCDs, which is non-communicable diseases, kill 41 million people each year, equivalent to 71% of all deaths globally. Each year, 15 million people die from NCDs between the age of 30 and 69. And over 85% of these premature deaths occur in low and middle income countries. That's from WHO. Of course, in terms of the leading cause, cardiovascular diseases is the leading one, followed by cancer, respiratory diseases, diabetes. And these four groups of diseases account for over 80% of all premature death from non-communicable diseases. So it's huge. Let's get closer to home in South Africa. I've shown this before. Imagine a place where we have almost 70% of women either classified as overweight or obese, and a third of men in that same category. It calls for concern. But I want to draw your attention to something very important, which is also happening, is childhood obesity. We can see it around us. So the question is, what kind of generation we'll have in future? So our education is very key in improving our individual choices of food, and consequently, it can have some effect, of course, on our children as well. Because right from the onset, we introduce them to better diet. And in South Africa, we have 51% of people, of all the death, come from NCDs. That's the estimate. And you can also see these various statistics. It's very important for us to start with the data. Facts is affecting us. How can we lose 51% of our population each year to NCDs? Something has to be done. And it's our lifestyle. But the most important thing is gut microbes, or the microbiome approach. How does it help? How does microbiome help? So we are going to go right now into the world of microbes, because these are other things or microorganisms that are living inside us, and they are affecting us, and they can help us. I want to ask you a question. Just before I start telling you about gut microbes, when you are eating, have you ever thought of feeding your microbes? That there are some living organisms there that also require some food? Yes, some of us, that's good. Yes, they require food. So you are only looking after yourself while you are supposed to look after other living organisms, which in turn can look after you if you look after them. But in most cases, when we are hungry, we will just go for some of the things we crave for, we eat, and then the question is, what happened to the microbes? Because they are living very far away. And some of the food they need may not be those ones that you are craving for. So let's go through the world of microbes and see how the microbe affect us. I like this slide because each time we talk about microbes, we have to remember Hippocrates. Hippocrates is one of the most outstanding men in the history of human medicine. And long ago, he stated that all diseases begin in the gut. Bad digestion is the root of evil, and death sits in the bowel. Hippocrates further stated that let food be your medicine, and your medicine your food. But why did it take so long before we realize, or we begin to realize, the importance of God's ecosystem to human health? Of course, we were focusing on pathogenic organism, which enters the body through the contamination of our water, and we paid less attention to those microbes. Another thing could be the lack of advanced technology to study those microbes in the past as we have in present days. Because we have new technology, we can establish the evidence, we can collect scientific data. So, what are microbes? I always like to define it because some of us might be thinking, we've been talking about microbes. What are they? The simple definition is that we can say that microbes are tiny organisms. Most cannot be seen by unaided eye, but we can see some. And these includes bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa. Those are the different microbes in our body. And they form an integral part of our genetic landscape. In fact, microbe cells exceed the total number of human cells by tenfold. We have over 10 to 100 trillion microorganisms, and the majority of these microorganisms lives in the large intestine, in the gut. So, in terms of their functional role, because I'm going to go through this in detail, they degrade complex carbohydrate or dietary fiber, they synthesize essential fatty acid, they produce those chemicals, and I'm going to go also into detail into fatty acid, the short-chain fatty acid, this specific type of fat, and they are source of indispensable amino acid and vitamin as well. So, now that we know the definition of microbes, where do microbes come from? Because that will be the starting point. Where do they come from? Of course, the child gets colonized at birth during delivery. That is why natural delivery is encouraged over the C-section. Because science have shown that these microbes are set early in life. In fact, 3 years. Of course, one of the sources of colonization, another one is breastfeeding. The mother gets to transfer some microbes to the child during breastfeeding. So for some of us who do not want to breastfeed, I will encourage you to do so. At least WHO stated that we should do it exclusively for 6 months. 6 months is important. Why is it important? It's due to the onset of diseases that depletion in gut microbes may cause later in life. We don't want our children to blame us. So, let the child play with the mud. We know that there are microbes in the soil, but not all of them are bad. There are good microbes in the soil. It builds the child's immune system. Of course, we are aware of the pathogen. We have to be careful. We do have pets. We can also be colonized or get some microbes through our pets. And this one through kissing. Of course, I believe if you think your partner, your wife, or your husband has a very good gut microbes, it's the moment to actually kiss them very well. Perhaps they can transfer some. Now, that's a joke, by the way. So let's move on. So let's look at the product of microbial fermentation. Because when you give your microbes the right food, and we'll also talk about some of the food that the microbes want, which is fiber. I mentioned dietary fiber, degradation of dietary fiber early in the functional role. So we'll touch on that. But before we do that, I just want you to note this. This is from a microbiological point of view. It might sound somehow to some, but they come into different phyla or different groups when you look at those microbes. But there are two major big groups or broad groups. And then we'll have bacteroidetes and firmicutes. And you can see that these are involved in energy production, amino acid transportation, and carbohydrate metabolism. So that's what they do. But when in relation to disease, when you look at those major groups, let's look at the distribution. Here you can see that microbes are present everywhere in our body. So yeah, good. But I want to draw your attention to this one. Look at a healthy control and patient. Just pay attention to the distribution of that two major groups, the firmicutes and the bacteroidetes. You can see that by looking at just the different square, the shape or the colors, you can see a significant variation. Inflammatory bowel diseases, you can see in the healthy control compared to a patient, type 2 diabetes, necrotizing enterocolitis, that's something that affects a very serious disease affecting a newborn babies or infant, their intestinal tract. So you can see that it's very, very important early enough in life to get the child colonized with the right amount, diversity, quality of microbes. Now, for those microbes to work, you need to eat the food. So we are now assuming that our microbes, we have the right microbes in our bowel, we've been well colonized. They need food, and that should come from what you eat. And one of them is fiber. We do have other things, phytochemicals, the other nutrients that will be undigested that can reach the colon. But mainly fiber plays an important role. And you can see they produce chemicals, short-chain fatty acid. You have some gas production as well. And that's why we feel those discomfort when we consume some fiber-rich food, especially the fiber that are not long-chain or complex, or the oligosaccharide, for instance. I'm just trying to run away to just big terminology for us to get this thing rolling. And also in terms of stool bulking, even the peristaltic movement, you evacuate regularly. That's something good because you don't get to keep the pathogens or the toxin in to allow them to be reabsorbed. So that's how fiber affects our health. So now, talking about one major product, which are the short-chain fatty acid. And we have three types, the butyrates, propionates, and acetates. If you don't know the name, it really doesn't matter. Once you eat some type of fiber, you will get those chemicals. Let's look at the butyrate, for instance. It's a main energy source for the colonocyte. It can induce apoptosis of colon cancer cells and activate also intestinal gluconeogenesis, so where you get to produce glucose from non-carbohydrate source. So you can begin to link it thanks to weight gain or weight loss, sorry. And then propionate. What happened to propionate? This is one of the products as well, short-chain fatty acid. It is transferred to the liver where it regulates gluconeogenesis and satiety signaling through interaction with the gut fatty acid receptors. And then acetate, most abundant short-chain fatty acid, is an essential metabolite for the growth of other bacteria. It reaches the peripheral tissue where it can be used in cholesterol metabolism and also lipogenesis, and play a central role in appetite regulation. I'm sure some of you may have heard outside, I'm taking some apple vinegar cider, and it's working. That's the acetate, because it can be administered and it can also be absorbed. So, this is what happens when you produce those short-chain fatty acid during bacterial fermentation. And then you can see around here in the descending column, it becomes very low and is associated with this colon cancer that you all know about. This from Brooks Amaka, from Westler Center of Carbohydrate. They did a lot of research to understand the mechanism of fiber utilization by gut microbes. So, summary for this part, because I told you it's in different part. The microbiota affect the host physiology. That's the community of all microorganisms living in a particular environment. That's microbiota. Short-chain fatty acids are important energy source to the colon epithelium. And then short-chain fatty acids are sensed by Hoag signaling pathway that modulate appetite and inflammation. So you can see. And then short-chain fatty acid has also been shown to readily cross the blood-brain barrier. And they affect the brain function, development, health, and diseases. So that's the first part.